sarin gas. Where were you then? You don't care about Arab children. You are a Jew hater, defined as someone who only wants to lie and say that the Jews are genocidaires. And don't try to cancel me and say that I shouldn't be on. You're not a producer of this show. Because you are ignorant of the facts and ignorant of the history does not mean that you can cancel my voice.
Cenk, your response.
Okay, so first of all, this guy is a full-blown bigot. He's one of the most racist people I have ever seen, does not value Palestinian lives at all. And everything he said about me is 100% untrue. I was vicious in my criticism of Bashar al-Assad. I have criticized Hamas over and over again, and I think what they did in the attack against Israel was reprehensible. But for God's sake, how long are you going to occupy these people?
All right, this is a very intense topic here. As you can see, both sides of this conflict that are not really agreeing on anything because it's more about my side against your side. There's not, at this point, with tensions being so high, with this recent massacre occurring early in October, and then also what's going on in Gaza to Palestinians, there's not really any kind of appeasement at all. And you can see that in this interview. So let's get some analysis on this, and I think it's important to see this interview because it has a lot to do with perhaps a pending wider conflict that could come from this. So let's see what's going on. So this is on the Piers Morgan show.
Welcome back. The G7, including the UK and US, is calling for humanitarian pauses in Gaza. Many other countries in the Middle East are demanding a full ceasefire. Israel has ruled out a ceasefire, while Hamas holds around 240 hostages who were kidnapped during the deadly terror attacks on October the 7th. It says there's already tactical pauses in its daily assaults on the Gaza Strip, where more than 10,500 people reportedly now being killed in Gaza, including over 4,000 children, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. On Sunday, the Pope made an urgent plea to stop the conflict, saying, "I pray to you to stop in the name of God, cease the fire." So with so much bloodshed, is it time for a ceasefire? Joining me now to discuss this, America's Rabbi and best-selling author, Rabbi Shmuley, and welcome back to Young Turks creator and Democratic presidential challenger, Cenk Uygur. Well, welcome to both of you. Cenk, let me start with you. Many people are calling for a ceasefire. Queen Rania of Jordan, Angelina Jolie, Arab leaders, and so on. I presume you would agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they've murdered enough Palestinian civilians. And even Netanyahu, in an interview with ABC News, said, now that we're on the ground, we're finally pressuring Hamas on hostages. Oh, so the 7,000 bombs you dropped were totally useless and collective punishment, and your attempt to murder civilians on purpose as some sort of sick vengeance. So please stop the murders.
Okay, I wouldn't say it's necessarily on purpose. There's nothing in the charter from Israel or from any commander that's saying they're intentionally going after civilians.
Ceasefire right now.
Rabbi Shmuley, your response.
Cenk is polling in the Democratic presidential primaries at 0%, nothing. He has a greater likelihood of being elected the new king of France. And don't interrupt me, please. And the reason is that the American people are decent. They understand that Cenk's anti-Semitism, which he has voiced on your show repeatedly, calling Jews genocidaires, and this is the eve of Kristallnacht, the 85th anniversary of the start of the Holocaust. He would deny the Jewish people the only dignity left to us, that we were victims of genocide, and he would say that we are the Nazis, we are the Gestapo, for simply wanting to defend ourselves against the brutality and the savagery of Hamas. Cenk, you'll have your turn. Just show some decency. If you're not going to show it to my people, show it to me and show it to the viewers of the show.
Stop.
But who is
lying.
surprised that a man? Who is surprised that a man the name of whose podcast is Young Turks, who perpetrated the Armenian genocide? The Young Turks is like calling your podcast the Young Nazis, the Young Gestapo. They killed 1.5 to 2 million Armenians between 1915 and 1918. The Armenian community has begged Cenk to change the name of his show. For the first half of his life, he was a complete Armenian genocide denier. Then he changed. Now he is a Holocaust denier because he is saying that the Jews are engaged in a genocide of the Palestinians. Now, which nation? How can there be 1.8 million Arab citizens?
Rabbi Shmuley, I'm going to go to Cenk. You said some very strong things about Cenk. You can now respond, Cenk.
Yeah, this you should never have this guy on air. Everything he said is a lie. I don't deny the Holocaust. That's insanity. And in terms of the Armenian genocide, there is a powerful analogy there. Why was it a genocide? And yes, it was a genocide. Why? Because they moved and displaced so many people and killed civilians on the way. What is Israel doing? Moving and displacing millions of people and killing innocent civilians.
Okay, well, you can see the Armenian genocide is being compared to the displacement of Palestinians in Gaza, saying that it is a genocide because it's a displacement of individuals. However, I would have to point out this is quite a bit different. The Israelites are not saying they're trying to commit genocide. They are displacing the people, and that is an effect or an after effect of the attacks, a response to what happened early in October, when more in excess of 1,400 Israeli citizens, innocent civilians, were killed, brutalized, raped. I mean, it's really horrible what happened, and I can see how both of these sides are trying to make all of these comparisons. However, that should not justify the action of what's going on in current day. Just because these generations have all of this blood boiling, it should not justify the killing of several people. However, the Hamas is keeping a civilian population from moving south. Reportedly, when they try to leave, they're being told they cannot leave, and they're kept there. And they're saying the Western propaganda, don't listen to them, stay here. I mean, if there are bombs and rockets all over the place, I'm going to hightail it out of there. I'm not going to want to hang around here. And if there's somebody like Hamas that is trying to keep me there, I'm not going to want to stick around. So let's see more of what they're saying here.
Definition of a genocide. So I think the Jewish people are an amazing people, and their culture is beautiful, and I don't tolerate any anti-Semitism. But I think that the occupation is decaying the moral core of Israel. How long are you going to oppress these people?
But Cenk,
and I know this guy, all he wants to do is an ad hominem attack. He's a liar. And you could tell exactly what kind of indecent human being he is. But the main reason he's doing it is to avoid the topic. When are you going to stop murdering Palestinians and cheerleading it?
Okay.
If you're talking about genocide, you're the one right now doing the genocide.
May I respond?
Yes.
Go ahead, more lies. Go ahead.
You know, I've spent my life debating people. Whenever someone starts using personal names and screaming like a lunatic, they're losing the debate. Let me remain factual.
You're the one
First
who
of all,
made up things.
The Palestinians were offered a state in 1936 in the Peel Commission. They rejected it. They were offered a state in 1947, the UN Partition Plan. They rejected it. They were offered a state in 1967 after Israel conquered Judea and Samaria and the West Bank. They rejected it. They were offered a state in 2000, Yasser Arafat, Ehud Barak. They rejected it. They were offered a state with Ehud Olmert 2008. They rejected it. Israel unilaterally withdrew from Gaza in 2005, and they did not create a state. In fact, where were you, Cenk, when you say that you care about Palestinian children, when Hamas stole the highest rate of per capita international foreign aid, larger than the Marshall Plan, from Palestinian children, did not build schools for them, did not build hospitals, took all the money to buy bombs and to build a network of tunnels, which is larger than the New York subway system. Where were you then? Why did you only come up now? In fact, when Bashar al-Assad killed 600,000 children, Arab children, when he gassed them with mustard gas, my organization took out full-page New York Times ads to protect them from sarin gas. Where were you then? You don't care about Arab children. You are a Jew hater, defined as someone who only wants to lie and say that the Jews are genocidaires. And don't try to cancel me and say that I shouldn't be on. You're not a producer of this show. Because you are ignorant of the facts and ignorant of the history does not mean that you can cancel my voice.
Cenk, your response.
Okay, this is pretty intense, as you know. However, when he says that the Palestinians rejected these peace talks or to have a two-state solution, who are the Palestinians are we talking about? This is all happening because of Hamas, right? Are Hamas, are they really a reflection of what the Palestinians want? Cenk would say that, no, that is not the case. They're idiots, he calls them. He says that they are undercutting this whole two-state solution. And it's true. It's been shown that Iran and a bunch of other groups Hezbollah and all that are backing these kinds of attacks because they don't want the Abraham Accords. They don't want peace in the Middle East because the whole purpose of these organizations is to create terrorism or instability and to get rid of Israel, get rid of Jews. And that is not good for the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people right now, innocent people are being killed, and as Piers Morgan said, in excess of 4,000 children. This is horrible. It's horrible. So Hamas seems that they really need to be the ones that get out of the way here. And I don't think the rabbi here is necessarily saying they need to wipe out or commit genocide against the Palestinians. What needs to happen is this kind of leadership needs to get out of the way for the betterment of the Palestinian community. And there's really no way around that. That's really just what has to happen. So let's take a look more and see what's going on with this interview.
Okay, so first of all, this guy is a full-blown bigot. He's one of the most racist people I have ever seen, does not value Palestinian lives at all. And everything he said about me is 100% untrue. I was vicious in my criticism of Bashar al-Assad. I have criticized Hamas over and over again, and I think what they did in the attack against Israel was reprehensible. But for God's sake, how long are you going to occupy these people? For me, the idea of Israelis and Palestinians or Muslims or Jews being different is absurd. Those are just stupid labels that we put on people. They're all human beings. I value the Israeli life just as much as I value the Palestinian life. We're all human. Stop using these nonsense labels
Cenk, let me ask you a
kill
question.
each other.
Cenk,
and all this guy wants to do is more murder of Palestinians.
Cenk, let me ask
when are you going to let them go?
Cenk, let me ask you a question. You mentioned genocide there. What Hamas is actually in its charter dedicated to doing is the purest personification of genocide. Well, it is. They want to see the eradication of Israel, and they proved on October the 7th they will kill as many Jews as they can possibly get their hands on. So that is pure genocide. What Israel is doing in return, I don't think meets the category of genocide. Right, because they don't want to get rid of every Palestinian. They don't want to kill every Palestinian.
No,
they want to kill every Hamas terrorist. Now, there are legitimate question marks about how they're going about this and about the civilian casualties. But there is a moral distinction between what Hamas is dedicated to doing and what Israel is dedicated to doing, isn't there?
No. First of all, Hamas is a bunch of idiots. They should take that stuff out of their charter. All it does is hurt the Palestinian cause.
I agree.
There's no call for it. It's dumb and it's immoral. But Hamas claims that they would like to do these things, and from time to time they do these attacks that are horrible and they should never do. But Israel actually kills Palestinians, actually occupies Palestine, actually denies the Palestinians a state. So there's this absurd talk of like, oh, if Hamas was super powerful, they might deny Israel its existence. Except Israel does exist. And the Palestinian state does not exist because Israel is blocking their state. So stop using, and I'm not saying it to you, Piers, but this propaganda, hold on.
You know, Cenk, you and I are almost the same age, and I'm actually quite worried for how upset you get on TV. You got to protect your health. You're just kind of losing it. Now, calm down.
Because I'm upset.
Oh, man, you got to be kidding. He is going after him hardcore. He's saying you should be worried about your health, that you're being way too up in arms about this. But, of course, it is a serious issue, so I can understand why he's upset about this. But I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, you can see they're just talking over each other. They're not finding common ground in anything. And I think Piers is trying to do it a little bit when he's mentioning those things about, okay, how are we defining genocide, and is Israel really intentionally doing that? And I kind of feel like all these interviews that I see with Piers Morgan, because he's the only one that's actually interviewing a lot of people on the Palestinian side and to see their views. But there's not really... watching all these interviews, there's not really anybody that's really willing to talk about saying, hey, where's our common ground? What can we figure out here? Because there really isn't. Tensions are hot here, and it's really really sad, really.
Clear.
You keep advocating
when
for
you
the
keep
murder
on
of
saying,
civilians.
Cenk, you have
like
to stop
terrorist.
yelling, you have to stop screaming, and you need to know the facts. The Palestinians were offered a state 7 times, and they rejected it 7 times. Bill Clinton told Yasser Arafat in 2000, you have made me a failure as president because Israel was giving you 97% of Judea and Samaria and the old city of Jerusalem. And Ehud Barak even offered the Temple Mount, the holiest site in Judaism, and the Palestinians rejected it. You simply don't know the history. Read a book. In fact, read a Wikipedia article before you get on TV. Number 2, you know, you made a very good point before, Piers, that Winston Churchill is the greatest British statesman and hero of the 20th century. Let's remember, when Churchill was faced with a genocidal threat of the Nazis, you know what he did, which Israel would never consider doing? He laid waste to 70% of Dresden, Essen, Cologne, Berlin. He eviscerated Germany and turned it into a parking lot, murdering about 6 million German civilians. Israel has never even considered doing 1,000th of that. And FDR acquiesced to it, and he's considered our greatest president of the 20th century. And then Harry Truman dropped 2 atomic bombs on Nagasaki, Hiroshima. So and Israel has nuclear weapons, has never considered doing that. Israel opened up
well, they've actually,
humanitarian
okay, let me come at you,
begging
Rabbi,
the Gaza. So I have one question.
I want to come back to you on 2 points.
Simple question. Cenk.
Okay, this guy needs to give Piers Morgan a chance here. This is getting out of control here.
No, I want to ask you a question, Rabbi.
Call Winston Churchill a war criminal on this show today. Will you call Churchill a war criminal?
All right, Cenk, answer that question.
Okay, so Rabbi Shmuley, if you're actually a rabbi, the standards of history have changed. So the Mongols went into Baghdad and killed every man, woman, and child, killed 800,000 people, the largest city in the world. Now, we don't live by those standards anymore. And right now, if a modern British prime minister or American president advocated for dropping a nuclear bomb in Japan or killing 70% of the people that live in Dresden, you're damn right I'd call him a war criminal. It's a different situation today than it was in the past. And so what you're saying is, hey, we only murdered 10,000 civilians, and wantonly and recklessly, and we only did a partial genocide, so we're not as guilty. I'm not buying it at all.
Rabbi Shmuley, I want to ask you a question. Okay, hang on, Rabbi, I want to ask you a question, which is this, which is the unique scenario in Gaza is that nearly half of the civilian population are children. They have nothing to do with this. They're not politicians, they're not in Hamas, they're not terrorists, they're not military, they're kids. And they are in their thousands being killed here. And I ask you, really, is there any limit, you as a rabbi, of the number of children who need to be killed to get rid of Hamas here, or is there no limit?
Of course there's a limit. We mourn the death of every Arab, Muslim, Palestinian child as if a Jewish child died. They are absolutely equal before God. That's why Israel withdrew completely and utterly in 2005, something that Cenk will not even acknowledge. There isn't one Israeli soldier, there wasn't until this new invasion, because of the attack on Sderot. I went to those places, Piers. I was there 2 weeks ago. I saw the blood caked on the walls, congealed to 3 or 4 inches. I saw the knives that were used to murder entire families. We saw the place where Thai, not Jewish, Thai farm workers who were growing pumpkins were beheaded. We saw the body of Shani Luke, and I spoke to her mother, Ricarda, who was taken naked. These are religious men in Hamas, taken naked in her underwear and her bra, her dead body, these necrophilia savages. We saw all that. How many Palestinian children need to die? God forbid, not one. All Hamas needs to do is let the civilian population go south. Stop using them as human shields. Hamas.
Okay, that's a good point there. I mean, what really need to do is let the civilians out of there. They shouldn't be there. Hamas needs to let them pass because this is ridiculous. Why do children have to be sacrificed for the cause of Hamas? And as I said before earlier, they need to be out of the picture. They can't be sacrificing their own people for this cause. It's not the way to do it. And it's not going to work. It's not going to further any Palestinian cause. It's not the right way to do it. And this is really sad. As you can see, they're just screaming at each other. This is how it is on both sides. There's not anything going on. Of course, they have Muslims that live in Israel, and they're trying to be a democratic society in which everyone's voice is heard, But in this kind of situation in Palestine and other parts of the Muslim community, unfortunately, that is not something that is allowed. You can't speak your mind. You cannot be free. I'm sure you can't really be a Jew, and you couldn't live in the Gaza Strip. I mean, as he said earlier in 2005, all Jews had to leave. All troops had to leave. That was not an option. So it makes you wonder, why aren't there more Palestinians speaking out against Hamas? There really aren't. And if you see these interviews, they're just not doing it. It's like they're afraid to do it, maybe because they don't want to be executed or what. But it's really, really sad. But let's see more about the interview. Let's see what's going on here.
These Palestinian children to die. Every Palestinian child to Hamas is a bulletproof vest.
But you said
they exist for no other reason than to humiliate Israel.
Okay.
Let them go south and be safe.
Okay.
But Hamas wants them.
But Rabbi Shmuley,
it's Hamas's fault. It's Hamas's fault. It's Hamas's fault.
Rabbi Shmuley, you did say there is a limit. What is that limit?
Piers, it's hard to put a number on how many people Hamas is prepared to allow to die in order to destroy the state of Israel. Remember, Hamas's motto is from the sea, from sea to sea, Israel will be, Palestine will be free. It's the annihilation of every Jew. Iran calls for it openly, a second Holocaust. This is the eve of Kristallnacht. I don't want to put a number on how many Palestinian children. I want a ceasefire right now. Hamas must surrender unconditionally, just like FDR and just like Churchill demanded of the Nazis, unconditional surrender, release the hostages. We get a ceasefire right now. Cenk, let me ask you to call for a ceasefire by having Hamas, who you think actually cares about the Palestinian population, to announce their surrender. Call for their surrender right now. They launched this attack unprovoked against Israel. They slaughtered 1,400 people. They are holding little babies whose diapers need to be changed as hostages. Call for them to surrender unconditionally.
All right, Cenk, final word to you.
Can we?
Okay. So, look, all this is nonsense. First of all, Israel did not withdraw. They control the borders of Gaza 100%. And as you can tell now, they cut off the water and power anytime they want. The Jewish people have been oppressed throughout history. My heart goes out to the Jewish people for all the pain and the suffering that they have endured through all of these years. But now Israel, unfortunately, is not the oppressed. It is the oppressor. Look at them dropping 7,000 bombs on grandmothers and children.
Okay, you can see this is not good. Cenk is refusing to denounce Hamas. Is it because he has all these viewers that are totally going to go over him and say, hey, we don't like you anymore? I mean, this is the problem that I'm seeing. Why cannot the Muslim community unite against those that are bad for the community? This does not make any sense. And the fact that Cenk is so resistant, and all of these people so resistant to going after Hamas. Instead, they're saying Israel's the oppressor in this case. They're saying, oh, well, they're oppressed. Historically, he is admitting, but not in this case. You can't, this is not how it's going to work. And I don't see how that's going to really, this isn't going to win this war. And there's not a numerical value you can put on lives being sacrificed. There really isn't. And I understand what the rabbi is saying here. So let's see more of what they're saying.
An American nurse that explained on CNN yesterday about how she sees little kids with burns all across their bodies. So Hamas is terrible. Yes, I can call for their surrender. That's easy. I don't like Hamas. I think Hamas is Muslim fundamentalist. But it's an impossible standard, and you know they're not going to meet that standard. And because you want to keep killing those civilians to show them how mighty you are and what a great oppressor you are, I'm sick of it. And it's not only ruining the Palestinians and causing their deaths, but it is ruining, it is causing the moral decay of Israel.
Blood libel. This is a blood libel against the Jewish people. You may as well just say that we drink the blood of Christian children and our matzahs.
It's not working.
Cenk, you are guilty of a blood libel on the eve of Kristallnacht. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm going to call.
This is a blood libel. Change the name of your show away from young Turks who are genocidaires who killed 1 million Armenians.
I'm going to try and wrestle things back to the host here and call a ceasefire for now. It's been a fascinating debate, very passionate on both sides. I get that. I appreciate you both agreeing to debate each other. I think that's important in this situation. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. This guy's ruining. There's tremendous anti-Semitism in the world. By crying wolf, he's actually hurting the Jewish cause tremendously.
From people like you.
Okay, you're a bigot. Stop killing Palestinians, you bigot.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's just name calling here. I mean, it makes you wonder, how did this really get started? Of course, Israel became a state decades ago after World War II. And what the Romans, they historically called it Palestine in the past, but of course that was more of kind of, hey, this is our land, but we're just calling it that way. And then the Jews are a marginalized people. And then finally, when Israel did get its final country back after being migrants from all over the world, I mean, that's why you have like Yiddish, which is mixed with German and other parts of the world where they're integrating in different parts of culture. If you look in Spain, you have in all the different Jewish sects, you have ones that are the Ashkenazi Jews. I mean, they have been a people that have barely been able to have their own place to call home. But you have bordering countries. You have Egypt, who has a lot of times refused to take in refugees. A lot of other neighboring countries refusing to help out fellow Muslims. The Muslim community has to help its own people. And it has to be a good example for peace in this world. And all that we're seeing with Hamas's charter of annihilating Israel, violence just being supported in all sorts of ways. And even in American media and movies and all that, Muslims are portrayed as those that are bringing about violence. They're wearing, robes and turbans and screaming and all that kind of stuff. There's a real issue with that because Muslims have to understand that, perception is reality. And that perception can only be changed by strong leaders in the community that are brave enough to stand up against this kind of thing and against this kind of perception. And until then, we're just going to keep seeing bloodshed and all of these problems. And we don't want this conflict to turn into World War III. We have China and Russia. They're enjoying this to be happening, frankly, because that means more instability, more open borders, more ways in which our economy, the Western economies, can be completely torn down, and then they can come up as the new superpowers over the United States, and then that's going to be a real big problem for everybody, for the global community. So we always have to remember that. All right, well, thanks for watching this video. I will post more videos in the future, and be sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.